Testosterone, one of the most important hormones for us males, yet the most neglected as well. Why is it neglected? I don't know. Maybe there's just not enough emphasis by the right people on how important of a hormone it is for especially males and for females as well to some extent. Of course, a lot of people wouldn't even realize that testosterone is produced both in males and females, but of course, in males, the production is significantly higher. So, in this video, I'm just going to talk a bit about testosterone and how it is linked with, of course, whenever we talk about testosterone, we talk about physicality, we talk about manliness, masculinity, and all those physical characteristics. However, I think there is a deep connection of testosterone with men's mental health as well. And I just want to record this video and talk a bit about that because in just today's time, of course, mental health crisis and mental health illnesses are on a rise. Pretty much everywhere in the world, people are suffering. Depression, anxiety, hypertension, you name it, and people are suffering these days. Yep, of course, if there's some sort of mental illnesses, there's medical pathways to get treated. You can go to a psychiatrist, psychologist, therapy. There's, of course, and if needed, you have to be on certain type of drugs and medications as well, which is all good. Like, of course, professionals know what they're doing and they would prescribe medications to people if needed. That is all fine. Of course, that is something that's a non-negotiable if you're genuinely diagnosed and suffering from chronic mental illness. However, I think there's so much we can do on a personal level. I'm speaking specifically about men's mental health here because, of course, I'm going to speak from my personal experience and I will be able to talk more appropriately about men's mental health because of obvious reasons. I'm a man. So I believe that there's a lot we can do on a personal level that could fix a lot of issues that we generally have in this modern society. Anxiousness, your feeling of loneliness, depression, or whatever, emptiness. There's so much that's going on. So I think instead of just straight away self-diagnosing yourself or trying to get yourself diagnosed, I think there's so much work we can do in terms of understanding our own self, how human body and mind works, and what potential changes you can do in your lifestyle to actually fix a lot of those problems. I'm not saying that it's going to fix your mental illness if you have some sort of illness. I'm not saying that it's going to completely fix it. Of course, you would need to get some treatment if required. However, I think it's still going to make things a lot more manageable for you. And one thing that that strongly correlates with men's mental health is testosterone. And that's why I want to talk a bit about testosterone in this video. So, without any further delay, let's talk about what testosterone is, where it's produced, what's the key functions, and just basic stuff that people might know. A lot of people might even know more than me, but just from my personal experience, I'll talk a bit about testosterone that I know. So testosterone is a primary male sex hormone, which is produced in testes. How it is produced? So in our pituitary gland, there's a couple of hormones that are produced. So there's luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So your pituitary gland would produce luteinizing hormone that would send signals to your testes, basically, to produce testosterone. And how this signal works is the signal would work on the basis of how much testosterone your body needs throughout the day. And your pituitary gland would keep on signaling your testes on the basis of different times of the day. Testosterone is a hormone that's a pulsatile hormone as well. So it peaks in a certain time of day, it peaks in the morning, hence your morning woods. It starts to sort of normalize, or it starts to hit a median within your daytime and then starts to dip down a bit during nighttime. So that's how it's produced. So depending on a normal, healthy, functioning male would have the pituitary gland signaling their testes to produce testosterone regularly. On the other hand, if there's some troubles or if there's some issues with that sort of, maybe there's some endocrine issues with a certain person, then of course there could be irregularities. But that's how testosterone is produced. When it is at the highest in a man's life, Definitely when the adolescence period starts, when a boy hits puberty, that's when testosterone is maximum. Reason, because of course the body has to undergo changes, reproductive changes, physical characteristic development. A lot of change is undergoing in a boy's body at that time. Increase of height, increase of muscle, bone density. There's heaps. Of course, I'm not a doctor by any means, so I won't be able to remember everything on the top of my head. But that's why at that time, nature has wired our body in such a way that our bodies would produce testosterone and other growth hormones at the maximum point in your life. Now there's a major I wouldn't say it's a misconception. Again, it's a subjective thing. So from studies and of course as per evidence, testosterone starts to sort of dip down I wouldn't say it starts dipping completely. It starts to normalize when you are completing your early teens, when you are turning 18, 19, when you've completed that puberty phase. It starts to normalize. It's coming on normal, within the normal ranges now, because those surges are not needed anymore. And then as soon as you turn 25, you hit your lifetime average testosterone level. So from there, yeah, you're still, you're very young. 25-year-old guy, still young, still very physically active. So there's going to be enough testosterone production, I think, until later 40s. That's when later early 40s, again, depending on person to person, it starts to dip down, where people can see testosterone dipping down in towards lower levels or lower range. Now, again, like I said, pretty subjective, because it really depends on what type of lifestyle a person is living, if there's any medical issues, if there's any substance abuse. There's so many variables, but this is the basic thing for a normal, healthy, functioning male. So a lot of people have this misconception as well, that as soon as you turn 30, your testosterone levels see a significant dip. I think that's not true. Talking from personal experience, I'm almost 30 years old, going to turn 30 next year. And I'm someone who has been checking my testosterone regularly, I think since I was 24, 25. And I haven't seen any dips for sure. If anything, I've actually seen some modest, not significant, modest increases. And that too because I've done a lot of hit and trial, done a lot of things that could actually help me improve my testosterone, mostly lifestyle changes. So I don't think that's true. Yet again, if you are someone who's over 30 years old and you are having a crap lifestyle and you're doing all those things that you shouldn't do, and that probably is crashing your testosterone, then of course you'll be more prone to having low testosterone levels, because you're at a older age now as compared to a 22-year-old. So for example, let's say a 22-year-old and 32-year-old are living same lifestyle. They eat crap food, they sleep like shit, there's a lot of alcohol or substance use involved, a lot of smoking involved. Then of course the 32-year-old person would be affected more, because they're at that age where they've started to age. Everything in terms of development has been stopped, and the aging process starts. However, a 22-year-old boy is still very young. There's still development going. Metabolism and all these things are still very high. So of course the body is used to more wear and tear at that time. So there's different examples. So that's some basic stuff about testosterone, what time in your life it's highest, when it starts to dip down. Yes, I would say when a man turns 40, I think that's when it starts to dip a bit. Again, it significantly depends on person's lifestyle as well. I would still say if a person at that time is having an elite lifestyle, they're eating really well, they have a balanced diet, they have a solid sleep structure schedule, and not just from a few years. I would say they have a foundation of all these things from more than a decade. They would still have very healthy amount of testosterone levels. Even they're 40, they're exercising as well. So combination of all these things, and also not just for a couple of years, the accumulation of all these habits from a very long time would still give you healthy testosterone levels even when you are over 40 years old. That's what I think. I've seen that as well. I've met people and I've seen how they live their life. They're much older than me and they're in fantastic shape and they have good levels of testosterone as well. So now, why is testosterone so important? Testosterone is not only important for these physical things. Like testosterone, of course, it helps you developing your muscle mass. It helps you getting your male characteristics like your facial hair, your deep voice, your muscle mass, bone density, etc. So pretty much all the physical traits and characteristics are dictated by testosterone levels, of course. And of course, there's a lot of other hormones as well, but I'm mainly talking about testosterone here. So yes, that's one area, but there's still so much neglect in terms of how important a healthy level of testosterone is important for our mental health for males. And I've been seeing an epidemic. Everyone's been seeing it. I've had a fair share of mental health issues within my life as well. I still have them. We're all trying to cope. But I've been seeing a lot of these videos and a lot of these people, influencers, even talking about how men's mental health is on a rise. Illnesses are on a rise now. It's become an epidemic, and men suffer in silence. They don't talk about it. They don't get treated. All these things. They're more prone to suicide. They're more prone to these heart attack induced deaths because of hypertension, blood pressure, etc. So that's true. I think both male and female, there's an epidemic in terms of both males and females having mental health issues around the world. I don't think it's a gender specific problem. I think everyone's facing, and how a person deals with it, yeah, I think that would vary from a gender to gender. A female would deal with mental health issues differently as compared to a male. So why testosterone? Because there's such a strong correlation between healthy testosterone levels and a good mental health. Now, I would be more than 90% sure. I'm giving a very rough number here, and of course there's nothing backed by studies, but I would be damn sure, because I've, again, speaking from personal experience, I've had that issue in my life as well. If a guy, male, who's suffering from chronic mental illness. When I say mental illness, they probably have chronic depression, anxiety, or some sort of issues that they've been chronically having, and they're on the verge to either get diagnosed or they've already been diagnosed. There's a huge chance that their testosterone levels wouldn't be as healthy or normal as they should be as per their age. How I can say this with so much of confidence? Because I've experienced that in my life. I was 23. I think I was 22 at that time, to be fair, sorry. And I had a very dark phase in my life at that time. I was suffering from depression. I was suffering from insomnia. I couldn't sleep properly at night. The average sleep that I was getting was like 2 to 3 hours per night. I had zero motivation. I had zero push. I had suicidal thoughts. I had pretty much every physical and mental side effect that you could have because of a mental illness. Not being able to sleep at night. If I did fall asleep, not being able to get out of the bed, having issues with my skin, hair fall. I was 22-year-old, and yes, I was having issues such as erectile dysfunction as well. I had very low libido for a 22-year-old. That's absolutely true, and I have no shame admitting that. I've had that issue in my life. I was 22-year-old at the time, but I used to feel like an 80-year-old man. And after a couple of years, after almost an year and a half of going through this fucking turbulence, I decided to study a bit, and I found out that I should get some tests. I got my testosterone levels checked, and again, if some people who know about testosterone a little bit of, they've got their previous tests done, they would know that the normal range is anywhere between 250 275 nanograms per deciliter up to 1000 or 1100 nanograms per deciliter. This is the normal range. I got tested first when I was 22. I had somewhere around 300, low 300s. Now, I was feeling like crap all the time. I then showed my results to the doctor. Doctor said everything's perfect, everything's fine, you're in a normal range. Then we do not need to do any intervention here. You don't need any medication, you do not need any support. And the doctor even mentioned that you're probably just thinking a lot, you're overthinking. So you should start focusing on other things in life. That's the exact word of the doctor that I saw. And I was like, I can't be overthinking. I'm having all these problems. My quality of life is just getting worse. I don't know what to do. I don't have any vision. I'm 22-year-old. I'm suffering from all these problems. And as a 22-year-old, when you're having so much of issues anyway, you're not able to feel like a normal human being. How will you think about your life anyway? All you could think is probably ending your life. And that's what I used to think as well. Anyway, after that doctor visit, I consulted a few other doctors. Pretty much the standard response. I had nothing against doctors, but again, if they see that something is within normal range, they wouldn't really consider any other variables or any other factors So they wouldn't really consider if you have some side effects, or they wouldn't even consider that being a 22-year-old, you're towards the lower reference range. That's not right. That shouldn't happen. As a young, healthy, functioning 22, 23-year-old, you should be at least within your 500s to 600s, at least, or 400s. At least when I say, and a lot of people are higher than that at that point of age. And I was nowhere near that. But still, because I was within normal range, happy days, everything was okay as per the doctors. And then after a few visits to a few different doctors, I decided to take matter in my own hands. I just started researching. I just starting to understand myself more, understand testosterone, understand how it all works, understand what are the possible things that could be killing my testosterone, what are the possible things that I could do to improve it. Took me a few years, but trust me, it wasn't any rocket science as well. I just kept doing basic stuff. So I worked massively on my nutrition as a 22-year-old. I was making sure that I wasn't eating anything processed, no processed sugar, just a diet including a lot of healthy fats, a lot of protein, carbohydrate, home cooked food, nothing fancy, going to the gym almost 5 days a week. Even though I used to feel like crap, I didn't have no motivation whatsoever, but I started following a nice strength training program. I used to call it 5x5 at that time, so 5 sets of 5 reps, compound lifts mostly, and some accessories like your bench press, squat, leg press, shoulder, military press, and then some of your accessories. So the idea was to go to the gym, make sure you're warmed up, lift as heavy as you can, go for 5 sets of 5 reps of each of these big exercises, not exhaust yourself. And there is a strong correlation between strength training and a healthy testosterone level as well. But of course, that is something that needs to be covered within a separate video. Otherwise, this would stretch for ages. But that's what I was doing. And then I was working on my sleep schedule as well. So before that, I didn't used to sleep at night. I was insomniac. 2 to 3 hours of sleep was the maximum I could get. I started trying to fix my schedule. I started to work on making my environment better that could help me falling asleep. I even took help of some melatonin because I just couldn't fall asleep at that time. It was just hard. I tried everything naturally, but nothing was just working. So I did a course of melatonin for a couple of months. And thankfully, due to that, my circadian rhythm, my body clock started to get better. I was able to fall asleep. I was able to wake up at the right time. So I think after almost 2 years, 1.5 years to 2 years of doing this regularly, I started to feel a lot better. I would say I started to feel like someone of my age again. I had motivation, I had energy, I was able to get stronger in the gym as well. I was able to increase my muscle mass, my hair quality, my skin quality was heaps better. My mental health was heaps better. I was no longer getting these dark thoughts. I was able to focus on other things in life, like my studies, life goals, etc. I got a lot better, and then I decided to get myself tested again. So got my testosterone tested. I was around 565, which was a much better level. I wouldn't say it's the best. It was still very mid-range, but again, you know what? I was thinking too much about getting my levels up at the time. I now had that sort of mentality that I just wanted to push it harder and harder. But then I was just, all those prime years of my life was just so much, I was so much just consumed thinking about these things, and I just wanted to take a break. I was like, you know what? I'm feeling perfect now. I have my sex drive back. I'm having erections are okay. Everything is coming back to normal. And now I should just focus on other things in life. And with all those interventions, I was able to get myself, I'd say, from a very dark point in my life where I was having thoughts that I should end my life to a great point in my life where I actually took some major life decisions, pursuing a master's, moving overseas in different countries, getting a residency there, everything. So I was able to achieve a lot of milestones in my life after that, which I think I wouldn't be able to if I didn't work on myself. And there also was a strong possibility that I could have just ended up going to a psychiatrist or whatever and getting myself prescribed or antidepressant, which could have made things more worse for me. Because I've seen a lot of people taking that road, and I'm not saying they got worse or they didn't get better. Of course, they got a lot of things fixed, but it comes at a cost, and there's a lot of short-term and long-term effects involved, which again needs another whole video to be covered. But that's why I just emphasize so much on testosterone, and just like how doctors You go there, and if you just want to get your normal health checkup, they would prescribe you certain basic stuff. But I think for a man at least, or even women, there's separate hormone profiles for a man and woman. And I think when you go to a doctor, when you ask for a health checkup, they should strongly include male and female hormone profile, your sex hormone profile within your basic testing as well. I don't see why it should be treated as a separate test altogether. They should all be included because it is so much important for both your physical and mental health, both for a male and female. Female, it could be your estrogen, your progesterone, your prolactin. There's so many other female hormones as well, of course. I'm not going to talk about those here. But for male, it's primarily testosterone. So if you're a guy, and especially if you're having these issues, if you are having chronic mental illness problems, even if you're not having that, I would highly recommend each and every guy to at least get tested once a year for your testosterone or your basic male sex hormone profile, which includes your total testosterone, your free testosterone, your LH, and your FSH. And it's going to give you a good understanding and a base idea of where you stand right now, and if there's any interventions you probably need to do in your lifestyle to get better. And of course, if you'll see, once you have the numbers, you'll see if some work needs to be done. When you put the work, you'll just see the quality of your life will significantly increase. So I think I get tested once a year. I think every other guy should also get tested at least once a year, regardless of your age. If you're young, of course, it's fine. And if you're doing all the right things, and if you're young, I don't think you have anything to worry about. But if you're someone who's over 30 years old, it doesn't really matter how your lifestyle is. I would still say that getting tested once a year would be worth it. Trust me. I've been doing that from last 5 years, and I've been seeing just good things happening in my life. So I think that's it. That's the only reason why I want to record this video. There's so much we can do on a personal level if we found out some stuff, and from a biological point of view, what's going inside our body. We can take some action, probably just improve so many things in our life, even without going to a professional or a doctor. So that's it. If you guys have any personal experiences about this whole thing, feel free to drop that in comments. If you have any suggestions, again, please feel free to drop that in comments box as well. Any experiences, any suggestions might help a brother out, or might help a man who's really in dire need of help right now. So that would be much appreciated. But that's all from my end. I'll see you guys in the next video.